Yeah, he kept fighting. He got concussed. Unlike Conor, man, Conor, when he got concussed, he just stopped fighting. Some people are coming out and saying, you know, Conor looked like he gave up versus him getting knocked out and all that. So for the listeners, you Conor McGregor, biggest fighter in the world, far as popularity goes, and he just had a fight recently about 2 Saturdays ago, and he's fighting his I wouldn't say rival, but he was fighting a guy he already knocked out in a minute and 40 some seconds. They had this big pay-per-view main event rematch, UFC 257. You could probably watch the highlights and everything now on YouTube. ESPN probably posted them. And Connor, he was doing all right. He was doing well. Next up, boom, Dustin Poirier chopped him down with some calf kicks and knocked him out or TKO'd him, whatever. And the social media, the sports world kind of erupted that night because it was a shocking ending result. And then now there's a lot of theories and shit about what happened. And I'm gonna come out and just say, like, hey man, I was a Conor fan, I was rooting for him, but he got beat fair and square. More power to Dustin Poirier. Dustin Poirier, not only a good fighter, he seems like a really good person. So, if it was gonna happen from anybody, it could have had happened to a better guy with Dustin. So how did you guys think about the fight?
So like I'm with you on it. Like the whole internet exploded when that moment happened. Hell, honestly, if you go check out on the page, right, on the Instagram page, me and Nigel have a live reaction of
Yep.
like what happens. Nigel sound like Courage the Cowardly Dog right there. Arr, arr, arr. I ain't even gonna hold you.
How did, how did this come into a joke about me? Why are you trying to use me to put your shit on? Like,
Yo, listen, I freaked out too. Like, when you watch the video, you can see how my reaction was. I couldn't even stay in my seat. Like that whole situation, you could tell at the end of the day, like the right man won the fight at the end of the day.
Yep.
Like, granted, we have seen some memes of actually Conor getting knocked out by Bernie Sanders, but that's but that's just meme worthy content. Conor, he didn't look like himself. He looked like he was able to keep some pace at some point in terms of keeping, like, just in terms of his striking, and he was hitting Poirier, but the way MMA works, you're not out until you're out. And at some point, I guess I thought Conor had gotten into the mind of Poirier, because like I told y'all, Poirier was bought, invested into his company and his donations and everything like that. And I'm thinking Poirier looks nervous. He's not going to get this out the way. And boy, did he surprise us, man. Like, Poirier came through to avenge a loss. And at this point, it has shocked the world along with anybody else. And Conor did blame it on ring rust, but I mean, there's a lot of people that fought last year. So
the way I see it is that Poirier was the better guy. I think a few things play into what happened with the fight. I think for Conor McGregor, ring rust does kind of play a part into why he lost, specifically for him, because I think his style is based a lot off of timing. And, he's a good counter puncher. Like, even when he won the belt from Jose Aldo, like, that was off a counter punch. Like, if you notice, his counter strikes are kind of like what he like excels at, So what goes out the window when you're not being consistent with your fights, your timing. Just so happens that he didn't look terrible in the fight. He just looked like he wasn't all the way there. And once again, when you get comfortable, even like he said it himself, the only way to get comfortable in the octagon is when you fight. So, like, I would have to say that, me personally, I'm willing to give ring rust to Conor, but I feel like also that comes from him being too content with what he's done with it in his career. I think that's kind of like a thing that he could. You see Dominic Cruz, John Jones, and a lot of people come out of these long hiatuses and are ready to go because, they're ready to go. You know what I mean? But they're not also making, millions of dollars off of liquor either. So you have to think about that.
So this is how I saw the fight play down, right? I thought Conor was winning the fight, and I thought he was definitely cracking Poirier and all that. But his boxing was a bit sloppy, and he was making some mistakes. And also, the calf kicks were killing him. Now, Anybody that watches MMA, like seriously, hey, you can't check calf kicks. You could check leg kicks, you could check other kicks, but calf kicks you kind of can't check. Those because it's right below the knee. You know what I mean? So instead of him adjusting, instead of his team, like, hey, look, man, we're starting to see these calf kicks pile up. That's going to affect you. And Conor admitted that's the calf kick shut his leg down for that fight. That's I'll put the blame on Conor, but I also put the blame on his team. Now him having ring rusting, I'm like 50-50 with it, right? 50% of me is like, okay, you're right. The dude only fought 40 seconds in a total of like 4 years. I mean 3 years, really. 40 seconds. While Dustin Poirier probably fought like almost 2 hours in the octagon. You know what I mean? So yes, that does play a part. But at the same time, the other 50 part of me is like, John Jones said something before when he came back to fight Daniel Cormier the second time. And they asked John, hey, John, don't you want to tune up or fight somebody else? And he was like, no. He's like, I'm coming back. It's either I got it or I don't. And then he ends up knocking out Daniel Cormier with a head kick when they end up fighting the weekend. So to me, I feel like, yes, ring rust does play a factor, but is Conor really training and everything? Has he been training? You know what I mean? Has he been seriously been trying? I always believe like if the dude wanted to fight, he could fight. The problem is, I think Conor likes to feel entitled with the fights that he's going to get. I think Poirier was a good fight. He's seen that, so he took it. But if you were to offer like Dan Hooker or another lower ranked lightweight to Conor, you would have to argue with him to even look that way. And the dude is a businessman, right? He's kind of like the Floyd of MMA. So he's going to pick and choose what's going to help him sell. But part of that is Conor's fault. And hopefully moving forward, he gets rid of the boxing shit. Hopefully he just gets rid of boxing from his mind. And he focused forward on training and being better. And hopefully he could bring a better staff around him. And so this way he can make another run, because if not, then maybe he should think about taking another fight to go out on a win and then never fight again, because now he's with the Sharks.
Well, I was going to say, I agree with Lau in terms of like Conor's performance. He was teeing off on him and then he did get caught. But like you said, when it comes to what happens next for Conor, because he could have fought more last year, but financially, like my belief is, because I was talking when we were talking about it on the live, like I do think because he's such a high cost ticket that to get him in the ring is still going to cost him too much, right? So with that being said, where he is now it's very questionable to see where he can actually end up moving forward, because you're losing all these fights. You're losing fights. Granted, your last win was against Donald Cerrone, and you're what is it? I think he's like 1-2 over the past 3 or 4 years. So because he fought Eddie Alvarez in 2016, and then he fought Khabib. Yep. So like you're 1-2 in the past 4 years, pretty much. At this point, I do believe like he's only fighting for money, right? Yeah. And I think if this is, he can blame it on ring rust, and I think that does play some factor. But like they always say, it's hard to get up to go run 10 miles when you're living on when you wake up and sleep on silk sheets at the end of the day. And that lifestyle is not going to change because he's cornered himself into a space where even if he doesn't fight, Proper 12 is always the sponsor. So like, I agree where he needs to own, if anything, give him like one more fight, might be able to get 2 fights depending on if he wins the next one. But don't let it be anything that's like title worthy. I think he just needs to fight like 2 novelty fights and wrap it up. We saw what Floyd even said, like where he just said like, yo, you're not what you think you are. You want to be me, but you're not, you don't have, your skill set isn't proper. No pun intended.
Go ahead, Nigel. I know you're trying to get some thoughts off. My bad, man. Go ahead.
Yeah. So what I was going to say is that the fact that his team is even talking about going to boxing in any way, shape, or form is ridiculous to me. Like it makes no sense. Like if his team was looking out for him in the right way, then they would say, hey, let's get back to basics and, get you ready for your lightweight title and just going from there. He's not going back down to featherweight. I think he's too big for that. But it's like all those 170 fights need to stop. Like he needs to be at 155.
Yeah.
Honestly, he would fight somebody like, I think, me personally, I think the next best fight for Conor is Nate, because you finish out the trilogy and win or loss, you make money, but you can also justify what you do next after that fight. Because if he loses to Nate, then he can fight somebody in the lower lightweights and you can build your way back up. If you beat Nate, then you could possibly fight a contender and then go for the belt, which we all know that's what Conor McGregor wants at this point in time. Because money, of course he wants money, but it's like if Conor wanted to fight and just get money, he could fight literally anybody. He probably would fight Nate a third time. You know what I mean? So clearly he is concerned about the belt. So it's like, I don't see a way that you really lose in a way that you can't recover from if you fight Nate next.
I think so. I don't want to see the Nate Diaz trilogy. Not now. I think that's a fun novelty fight. And if Conor's on his way out, then yes, the Nate fight would be fun for us fans and all blah blah blah. But if you're talking about like a serious lightweight title run, I don't want to see Nate. Nate's not in the lightweight rankings. Nate has nothing to do with lightweight in the past. Ever since Nate hasn't fought a lightweight in years. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I have no interest in seeing that. Now, me personally, what I would like Conor to see, if he's going to make a serious run at lightweight again and fix up his problems, I would like him to see maybe fight a Dan Hooker, maybe fight Tony Ferguson. You know what I mean? Fight some of these guys that are coming off losses like him, and start to build that momentum up. You know what I mean? Hell, maybe even fight Justin Gaethje. Fight a contender, so this way you could start build yourself up. But let me say this one last thing. I think, and me and Nigel were talking about this. I think the UFC is going to try to make Conor and Poirier the trilogy this summer. I think that's what's going to happen next.
Yep.
Yeah. I definitely agree there, where I see a trilogy happening between the two. I'm not sure if it'll happen right away. If anything, like if it happened in the summertime, it would be perfect. But going back to what you were saying about like him fighting Tony Ferguson, Gaethje, or Dan Hooker, I'll be honest with you. Do you think Conor believes that he can actually beat any of those guys?
Yes.
Like, great.
Yeah.
But
I do.
Okay. So with him, do you believe that he can beat those guys?
Yes.
Yeah, I think
Really?
I think
Really?
they're favorable matchups for him. Yeah, because
Yeah,
like the Dustin Poirier, you saw like it wasn't that he can't compete with him. It was just one, whether you want to use ring rust or not. I thought he had bad game planning with not adjusting to the calf kicks. You know what I mean? And because when he got taken down by Dustin Poirier, it wasn't like he was taken down and mauled on. Immediately he got his back to the cage and he got up. And he was outworking Dustin Poirier in the clinch. You saw it when he was cracking him with the elbow, the shoulder strike. So it's not that he can't compete out there. It's more like when you're at the top of the lightweight heat, and this goes for any division, yes, your skill set is going to work. But now it's kind of like, hey, game planning means a lot more in these fights than, technique versus technique. And that's how you're going to win these big fights now. Look at Volkanovski versus Max Holloway, and not to be sidetracked, but Volkanovski, he beat Holloway with a game plan. He didn't beat him because he was the better boxer or whatever like that. So I feel like Conor, he needs to, do that karate style he used to fucking do. Just get away from the boxing shit, please. Just stop.
Before we move on to anything else, can we just talk about that fight with Max Holloway and how he put on the performance of a lifetime?
Well, what do you guys think Dustin should do? Let's give Dustin.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah,
you're
let's
right.
finish that out
right.
that way. I'll let you guys go on that.
No, go ahead. You haven't talked yet.
When it comes to Dustin, I'm not quite sure. I think if anything, he should be. He's in contention for either fighting one more fight and then getting a fight for the belt. But like right now, to me, I don't really see him for right now. I don't see Dustin Poirier fighting anytime soon, because I think in his case it's very contingent on like who Khabib's next opponent is, or who fights for this belt, who fights for the belt at 55 right now. For me, like it kind of is a sticky situation just because we don't know what the rumors are with Khabib. There's rumors that he's coming back. Then there's rumors that he might not come back, or if he does, is fighting GSP. Like it kind of makes it a sticky situation in this case for me personally.
Yeah, if Khabib ever fights GSP, I'm gonna be so mad. I'm just gonna be so upset if that fight is ever made. Like, I understand that's a fight that a lot of people want to see. I have no interest in that fight whatsoever. But
Yeah, like I said, it's a lose-lose situation personally.
I think Dustin Poirier, here's what I said to Lau the other day. Okay, Dustin Poirier can fight Conor McGregor. Dustin Poirier can fight Charles Oliveira. Dustin Poirier can fight Michael Chandler. I don't care who Dustin Poirier fights next, as long as it's for the belt. Please, please get that belt moving. Khabib has essentially said, hey, look, I'm retired. I'm done. He's made it pretty much very clear that he's not interested in fighting. When you're saying, look at them and look at me, just get the belt, move it on. Like, the lightweight belt needs to mean something. And if you have him fight Conor McGregor for all the marbles another time and it's for the belt, all right, cool. Like, you can justify that. You can justify any fight you make with Dustin Poirier as long as it's for the belt.
Absolutely. And that's why that's why I look at it that way with Khabib, like, because of because of his like retirement, not retired thing, it kind of is like really messed up the division in terms of who should be fighting next. Because I remember we had talked before about like how there needs to be some type of clause in terms of mandatory amounts of fights by the champion per year, so we don't have to deal with a situation where it's like, because I don't want to see him fighting. I don't want to see Poirier fighting for the interim belt. It needs to be for the championship at this point. Like,
one more thing,
definitely if you have the dude saying he's retired.
I had another idea that I floated past you, but go ahead, La, and say what you were gonna say.
I was just gonna say, you guys know how I feel about the current situation in boxing. Super corrupt and shady organization. Dark dealings behind the scene. So, but
sounds like Shadowlow or something.
Yeah. But the one thing about boxing that I think that UFC, maybe MMA as a whole, should adopt is mandatory challenges. And I think, like, if you have a number 1, 2, or maybe 3, because 1 to 2 is not available, contender, they should be a mandatory challenger. Like, UFC has to stop with this. Hey, we're going to give a number 8 and number 7 a title shot because it's the fight that sells. Don't get me wrong. Yes, we would all love to see the money fight and all that because it's entertainment, right? But in certain situations like this, hey, look, Poirier just beat the face of the fight game. Have him fight Oliveira or Chandler if the UFC wants to do that. I think Oliveira, and have those two fight for the belt. That's it. Let's stop this Poirier versus McGregor trilogy. Yes, everybody watch it, but as far as a credibility standpoint, it doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? Right. Like, fight the guys who are on the win streaks for the belt and strip Khabib. Please don't let him hold out for GSP. But strip him, because it's not doing nothing but holding up the division.
Exactly. And if anything, I would respect it even if they said, you know what, strip Khabib and let's move on. Let's move on with the division. And if Khabib decides to come back, he can fight. He'll have to at least have one fight before he can fight for the belt. Or maybe of course, because it's the UFC, it's a business at the end of the day. They'll probably push him forward and have him fight for the belt to see if he can become champion again. I can respect that more of than at this point where you're just holding the division up. Like, from a fan's perspective, I get it I understand from a business perspective where it comes from, but when it comes as a fan, I want to see the best fight the best, and I want to see the best fight the best, and know who's the king, and whoever should be next in line should be fighting next. Like, a lot of this stuff is a lot of the unwritten rules, I think, have been displaced because of you having these big fighters like the Conors, like the Rondas, that sell tickets, and it's like, hey, it doesn't matter who they fight, as long as we get them in the ring, we know we're going to put up numbers. And then you have like Triple C, 4C, whatever he wants to call himself. Like, Like when you have that type of fighting going on, it don't get me wrong, it's entertaining for the fan and the casual fan especially, but the reality is you're not getting anywhere. Like from in terms of the sport, it doesn't push the sport forward in the way based off the foundation of the sport, I'll say.
What I was saying aloud the other day was maybe they could possibly make like a tournament like between like Charles Oliveira, Michael Sandler, Poirier, and Conor, and just have them fight. Have like maybe even like 2 other fights with Gaethje and Dan Hooker and whatever, blah blah blah, like some shit. I don't know, but like they could have them fight and then have them fight on one card and then put the winner of those fights for the title on, and essentially make it so like they can fight a third time and it's not a title fight, but it's also them fighting towards something. You know what I mean? As long as the next fight is building towards something, then that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah.
We got another title fight at the welterweight division soon as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you want to talk about the Max thing also or not?
Nah, we spent a lot of time on Conor.
Yeah. But all I'll say is I'll just tell people, make sure you go check out the fight with Max Holloway, because he definitely put on a clinic and showed like why he looked like he was in the Matrix that whole fight for the most part.
It's one of the best performances I've ever seen.